Good evening. It's Railnatter, everyone. Hello, hello. How are we all? I hope everyone is well. Yes, we're here. We're here to discuss, well, some interesting bits and pieces, actually, tonight. We're here to talk about the Liverpool-Manchester Railway Board's Connecting the Northwest to Drive National Prosperity report. It's a bit of a mouthful. We're looking at the... let's say local authority-led, or rather, should I say combined and local authority-led proposals for long-distance high-speed rail segregation in the northwest of England. Again, that's also not very smooth. We're calling it the Connecting the Northwest report, and it's going to cover... We've got a fair bit to talk about tonight, but I'm excited to be doing so with all of you. There's also going to be a bumper segment after what's going to become the mid-reel ad. So for those of you long-time listeners, but also any new listeners, hello, listen on for that, because, there'll be some things to discuss. So that's all coming up later. Of course, I have to say that this is all only possible thanks to my Patreon supporters. For £5 and above a month, you get access to, or very soon will do, it's work in progress, but certainly by next month, you will get access to not just a bonus episode every week, a short little bonus. It's not quite going to be an equivalent episode every week, but a bonus after every Railnatter, kind of a kind of a Q&A type situation. More on that on the Discord server. You get access to more exclusive bits. You will get a wide range. Oh, and of course, you get a copy of the audiobook of How the Rails Will Fix the Future as a Patreon supporter. So all of that and more at the £5 and above tier. Those people who support me on Patreon allow Railnatter to happen. Without further ado, let's get cracking. Everyone, welcome to tonight's Railnatter. And as the Intercity 225 fades away, everyone in the chat, do let me know what the levels are looking like. The setup's been changing a little bit over the last few weeks, and so my levels have been bouncing about, but hopefully in a way that's useful. We must start, firstly, by me saying, hello, look, it's me, it's my face. We must start with the news, because in the news, we have got a couple of interesting things that I wanted to just touch on that lead us very nicely into tonight's episode. Hello, all. Those things include, firstly, this is an interesting one. Burnham has been punching for the North for a long while, but very interestingly, the former Secretary of State for Transport, Louise Haigh, late of this parish, friend of the show, have both come out swinging for much more spending. Here from The Guardian saying, ex-Labour Minister calls for wealth tax and public investment in June spending review. Exclusive. Ex-Minister to call for wealth tax and Andy Burnham to demand focus on housing and education. So, some pretty bold moves. What I would love, I mean, we're multiple steps away from it happening. Wouldn't it be fab if Louise Haigh ends up stepping across the metaphorical corpse of Keir Starmer into a high up position in government, or premier? Let's make Louise Haigh the first Prime Minister. That would be a nice gob at the eye of those who forced her out, McSweeney. Anyway, so that's all good fun. And why is that pertinent? Well, the response from Labour, perhaps not to these two necessarily, although there's absolutely serious revolt going on within the Parliamentary Labour Party, i.e. all the MPs in Labour. The response from government has been, by the way, we don't have all the details for this yet, has been for Labour to simply re-announce the CRS-TS2 funding that the Tories had already given us. So it's been fronted as Rachel Reeves announces the best part of £16 billion for new transport, trams, buses, road upgrades in some instances, all things of this nature, announced in Manchester, by the way. So perhaps slightly responding to look how bored all these people look in the background, by the way. Good grief. Anyway, point being, this announcement, as far as I can tell, there's no new money at all in the announcement. Someone can maybe correct me on that if they don't agree. But in fact, in some instances, I think, for example, for the West Midlands, some of the clever people in the Discord server are pointing out that actually the West Midlands are getting £300 million less than the Conservatives promised in this upgrade. What's happened is CRSTS2 is the City Region Strategic Transport something. I think something along those lines. That has been mutated into a new fund as part of the devolution white paper, but it's just kind of been transferred over, essentially like for like, or in some cases slightly less. What it actually involves, we don't know. Also, again, I'm not getting too excited about exactly the detail of this because we don't have the full detailed announcement yet. What I'm looking forward to seeing is the full announcement, hopefully paired with long-term major strategic infrastructure investment, because two things here. City region funding is not strategic. It is for cities to be leading it. I would not describe it as strategic funding. I would say that's funding that cities should have total ownership of. And that's the second point, is that this should not, that these funds, whilst it's a step in the right direction, should not be, we have this money, we're central government, and we're going to dangle it in front of you, maybe you'll get some. No, it should be, oh, you know what, city regions, you're locked in to get this funding long term. Go back to our white paper episode when we looked at the devolution white paper, we talked about this. Oh, by the way, you've got this money for the next 40 years and you can do with it as you please, or certainly the next 10 to 15 years, do with it as you please. No strings attached. Alas, not. But anyway, what's quite nice about this is it usefully leads us into tonight's episode, which is looking at this report, this report that came out last month. It's fairly fresh off the press, and we're going to do just that. We're going to have a look. We're going to have a little look at the. First of all, I'm going to go big face because I'm going to do a transferee. We're going to do this, and then this. Because look, it's me on the side again, and you can see my mouse without me having to change some stuff. So here we go. We're going to do a PDF page turn, but you'll be pleased to know my muggins is going to be right next to it. Right. So, in there we say, a few people, by the way, this is, sorry James, but this it's the interactive element. So hello everyone in the chat, by the way. Tom S, great to see you made it home from Darlow. Okay, really enjoyed the afternoon's talk. Yeah, glad a few people. Hello Jamie as well, and others who are here. It was great to see a few of you. Basically, we did a rail natter earlier, but live at Darlington, or just north of the city centre in Hopetoun, and it was great. It was the first of the two that I've been plugging in every episode, and it was just a rail natter, and it was fab. Really enjoyed it, and even more stuff for us to chew through. I think again, a couple of the attendees talking about classics and the potential for more railway history. Watch this space. I've been thinking about how to capture this early railway history stuff in a neat and tidy way. Anyway, yes, also pleased to see Louise Haig came out swinging on Gaza as well. Adam, yes, too right. So this is side face, says Gareth. Yeah, perhaps. Anyway, this is all the stuff that James will cut out of the podcast. But anyway, that's fine. Let's get cracking, shall we? So here it is, the front cover, and they've used it's a pretty bland looking front cover, but whatever. It's pointing out where the stations are going to be for their proposed high speed rail network of the region. And it's worth saying as I come into this, this is how HS2 should have really looked, is that governments say, we know that strategically, nationally, we need the high-speed network to go through this area. We're going to give the bits of it to the combined regions or collections of combined regions and let you lead on what you think it should look like. But we have these key things it needs to do, including key Glasgow to London journey times, for example, that would help steer exactly what the pieces look like. And you get a bit of back and forth between, say, this collection and what you might get in the East and West Midlands kind of combining to talk about, and North Wales maybe combining to talk. So this is how HS2 should have been delivered, actually, is in these bits, and we'll pick up more on that shortly. Actually, it's relevant and interesting to pick that up. So I am going to get on with it, shall we? So here we are, a nice glossy PDF, some nice pictures. There's a table of contents. We won't worry about that. There's a forward. And we're not going to dwell on going through the forward. There's all this good stuff. They set out the vision for whatever the Northern Arc is. We'll maybe touch on that later. All the kind of the normal sort of standing thing. There's a nice paragraph here. This isn't another big rail vanity project. Well, neither was HS2, but anyway. It's a practical, deliverable plan focused on people, place, and prosperity. Okay, we'll test that momentarily. We're not turning up cap in hand. We're offering leadership, solutions, and the chance to pilot a new model for infrastructure delivery, one that's rooted in local knowledge and national interest. Well, that's good words. Let's see what it stands up for. There is one thing that I want to highlight here, which is them negging the Prime Minister somewhat, which is good fun. Here, talking about, as the Prime Minister said in March, after years of false promises and under-delivery, this government is delivering a real change for the North. The fact they've included that quote is basically saying, are you Boris Johnson again? And here's the line, we're ready, let's deliver that change together, so fine. And it's worth saying, maybe jumping back to the front cover again, this is the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority, so the two big CAs, plus Warrington Borough Council, Cheshire West, Chester, Cheshire East, St Helens, Manchester City, Trafford Council as a collective, Liverpool City Council, Peel Ports and the Port of Liverpool as a group, Manchester Airport Group, which is owned by the city for the most part, as airports ought to be, and TFGM as a kind of a stakeholder. So it's kind of listing off the stakeholders that form the board that want this railway to exist. So let's jump forwards again. So we've got this introductory period, introductory sort of chapter going, powerful growth corridor, marvellous. We've got some stuff saying what makes this region unique, and then a bunch of stuff that's not unique to the region. Like, this is stuff that everyone has. Fine, okay. But, whatever, that's fine. You just say that. 4 pillars, we believe, set us apart. Okay. I would say, okay, fair point on the leadership and vision. This is why I put Burnham's face on here rather than Rotherham's, because Burnham has relentlessly been a champion of the relationship between strategic and regional and city and local transport. So in a way that I absolutely do buy into and agree with. Hugh Merriman is the chair of this board, interestingly enough. We'll get to that later. So there's that, which is whatever. The stuff about Northern Arc, which is cyber, AI, all this guff. So whatever. Okay, so fine. So that's all the stuff about what all that is. But there's a couple of things I want to focus on. Page 10 is the first bit that I really want to draw out, because we're seeing they've laid out 5 of what they see as the key challenges to the existing railway network. And understanding the challenges, step 1 in dealing with, like my sustainability lectures, challenges and choices. You've got to understand the challenges to make the right choices. So let's look through these. So number 1, I'm not going to read the picture painting thing. That's fine. Just leave that as it is. But I'm going to go through their 5 problems. Number 1, slow intercity journeys. This is number 1. And I will defend it being number 1 because, and this is not, I'm not blowing smoke up anyone's buttocks. This is quite genuinely, this is the thing you put as number 1 if you point out, which they've kind of not here yet, at least. The reason why intercity journey speeds are important is because if you have the fast hub-to-hub speed, it makes journeys from door to door via the hub-to-hub section more viable entirely by public transport. If you're using Metrolink in Manchester, Metrolink is pretty slow, which is why Manchester needs its own dedicated metro system, but that's another episode. If you've got Metrolink at one end and say you're then going to, it might be that you're going to London, or it might be that you're trying to get to North Wales, of which part of that will be on this high-speed kind of core, then having higher speeds means the overall journey becomes more realistic. So journey times are important. People used to go on about HS2. Oh, I should never have called it HS2. Oh, you shouldn't talk about speeds. Like, no, speeds are important for that very reason. Technically, it's called generalized journey time, the overall picture. It is important. But what's nice here is they have highlighted it. They've talked about, the challenge. What's interesting here is, we can do speed, but we've got congested infrastructure. Speeds are rubbish. And also they've very usefully, again, pointed out, which is why speed is important. Just the journeys are, in some cases, twice the car journey time. So that's a really key point of why speed is important. Number 2, infrequent services. The network also lacks frequent services between key destinations. Frequency is freedom, so this is a really important point to highlight, and they have put it at number 2, which is really, really good. Few stations receive more than 2 trains per hour despite serving significant local populations. So that's really important key point to draw out. Number 3, persistently unreliable services. The lack of segregated... hello, I'm looking at the screen, by the way. If you wonder why I'm not looking at the camera, it's because the screen's over here. Anyone new watching this, hello, that's how this works. Number 3, persistently unreliable services. The lack of segregated infrastructure. Hello, nice use of language. The lack of segregated infrastructure for different service types makes the rail network prone to delays. Maybe they have been paying attention to my work, even if they've not phoned me directly. This is standard stuff. I'm not conceited enough to think that that's stuff that they wouldn't know if they've got good people to write it. In 2023, 10%, although I was the one who popularised descriptions like this into the public domain, but anyway, in 2023, 10% of services at Manchester Victoria were cancelled, the second highest figure in the UK. Manchester Oxford Road was in joint third place at 9%. Yeah, absolutely. Point 4. Fragmented routes. This is a really interesting one. I like this, and I like the fact that it is sat here in this top 5. Few rail services traverse the entire region, making it difficult for people to access the full range of opportunities in the area. For instance, Greater Manchester's northern and eastern boroughs, such as Bolton, Rochdale and Oldham, lack direct rail connections to Liverpool. It's a very good and interesting point. Number 5, freight services squeezed out. Freight is in the top 5, which is really important. Due to the passenger pressures above, the number of freight paths is limited. This constrains growth in the freight sector and leads to unnecessary lorry trips that contribute to road congestion and pollution. So they're pointing out the mobility in totality challenges. So far, this page 10 is a nice page. I like this. I'm reassured by the framing of this. A little more needs to happen though. So let's see then. There's a nice picture. Let's go through the proposals then. We'll spend a bit of time on this. Let's go through these proposals. Let's take a clear look and go through these proposals. Do keep remember to add my name in the chat, by the way. If you got a point or a comment that you want to make, I'll pull it up into the episode, shove it in the chat, and I can see it and refer to it and so on. So here we go. Let's go through these proposals. So firstly, on the screen, you can see the PDF version of the proposals. You've got here enhanced services. So there's an enhanced services bit here that they're showing fairly bold on the existing railway network. I'm slightly wary of that, but okay. I would prefer being bold and saying actually we need potentially need a new line from Chester. But anyway, okay, so that's what they've proposed there, is this connector from Warrington Bank Quay, and that's fine. Again, it's not for me. If that's what the local area has decided, then I will support that. That's their right to do so, and therefore I will. If they've come up with this as the proposal, I'll back it up. I might criticise bits of it, but I support it. They've pointed the big thick black line or thick dark blue line here is their proposed high-speed route, critically showing the continuation of that thick black or dark line to Huddersfield, Bradford, Leeds, and further east. So that's interesting and relevant, though nothing about connectivity to Sheffield. Episode 222, by the way, is where you want to go to see how this compares to what we think should happen. But anyway, so they've kept the Manchester Airport thing. You can see the leg. This is basically the HS2 bit from Manchester Airport up to Piccadilly. It's nominally the same route. There is the junction at Millington, and then the old former HS2 proposal down to Crewe. The proposed Cheshire connector. They're showing that very lightly, though. So okay, fine. That's there. Then from there, we've got this sort of their bit of the infrastructure, which is from Millington to Warrington Bank Quay, with a station shown at Warrington Bank Quay, then down to this new Liverpool Gateway station, which is the other airport connector, although they've shown a little airport symbol, so interesting. There, some politics at play, and then they've got these thick dashed lines, which are basically the two options of how to get from Liverpool Gateway to Lime Street. And you know what I like is they're going, you know what, we're not as confident about exactly what the right route is here. This is early stage, but we know that we need to have dedicated infrastructure between these two nodes, and so we're kind of showing what those might look like. So, you know, I kind of like that. And ditto, there's like, we know that there needs to be a gateway station somewhere. We're not going to pretend we've done the work to decide where that is, but we know that we want to have a connector there somewhere. And the important thing about railways is kind of drumbeat is having a rhythm of services, a rhythm of physical stations as well. And this does give you a sort of a bit of a drumbeat of station frequency. It's not perfect in the, you know, you're not perfectly separated and spread apart, but I could understand the gateway stations being, even, you know, yes, it's to an airport, the airport exists now, but in the future airports are, as I've said before, wonderful development areas, so it's not necessarily a bad idea to create an area that you unlock, and it gives you eastern access into that side of Liverpool. There's some value to that, you know, and the way it links into the regional network and the local and city urban networks potentially is useful to put a station there. So I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea. And again, this collection of local authorities and combined authorities have decided they want to do that, and so by rights they should. The only way you would challenge that is if government. So if you go back to my plan of what I'm talking about of how you'd fit this into the bigger picture, is the thing that would threaten that is if that got in the way of a strategic goal by government to go, we want a journey time of this between Liverpool and, say, Leeds, or Liverpool and Hull, or Liverpool and Newcastle. You might say, well, that means we can only have, you know, if the journey time is this, without any stations, and then stations add this much time. You can only have this many stations, and those stations need to be here, 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 here. So that's the way you would do that. Or you make the calculations in, and it's actually worth us slowing journey times down by 3 minutes or 4 minutes to get a station in at Gateway. You kind of think about it in that way. So that's the opportunity there, and that's kind of what they've justified. Jamie Potts is saying, I think the Liverpool Gateway station wouldn't be needed if you just improved links from that area of Merseyside to the Warrington station. That's kind of my gut feeling on that one as well. But again, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on this one. Jamie Potts also saying, I reckon you could upgrade the Mid-Cheshire line and connect it to Manchester Airport Station for the connection to Chester. Okay, yeah, that's certainly one option. Gareth is saying, so this is not me, this is going via platform 1314 at Piccadilly, then Ordsall curve to Vic. No, this is new dedicated infrastructure. This is brand new dedicated high-speed infrastructure. Right, let's crack on, shall we? So we're on page 13, and there are a few things that they're pointing out here. So this is the kind of the broad discussion. A new railway with 5 stations. So the route from Manchester Piccadilly to Airport Bank Quay has a single preferred alignment with the portion north of the airport in a tunnel, as HS2 proposed. A hybrid bill is currently in Parliament for the segment between Millington and Piccadilly, which was part of the previous HS2 Phase 2 scheme. Yeah, we know that. The LMR Board's priority is for an underground through station at Piccadilly that maximises the local regeneration opportunity by unlocking so and so many hectares of prime development land and allowing for future onwards connections to West Yorkshire. So they are kind of picking out what they know needs to happen in the long term, and again setting up for a dedicated high-speed connection across to Leeds, right, and to Bradford and Leeds, ideally, in fact, to North Manchester, Bradford and Leeds, actually. So, thinking about the future, which is good. I like that. The airport station will be new, okay, while Warrington Bank Quay will be expanded with a new low-level station. It's funny, I've walked on the low-level platforms. In fact, you can find it on Twitter, me wandering around on those low-level, well, not platforms, the low-level old freight track that's under the station. I wonder how they'll actually make that work. That'll be interesting. Next to the Unilever factory, one of many. To serve LMR and interchange with West Coast Main Line, yep, fair enough. This new service will enable transformational improvements to connectivity between Northwest. West of Bank Quay, the alignment will utilise some or all of the now redundant rail freight corridor that passes the decommissioned Fiddler's Ferry Power Station and Widnes. Okay, accepting that might limit your speeds, and maybe they need to make sure they do something grand. We're keen to work further with government to determine the most appropriate route alignment into a transformed Liverpool Lime Street / Central Gateway. There are a few options that they talk about. They point out, though, indicating their favour, the option to progress along the existing West Coast mainline alignment carries a greater risk of significant long-term disruption to delivery, with consequential impacts on existing services and local businesses, while a dedicated alignment would require a new tunnel to provide access into Liverpool Lime Street, so on. In either case, services would call it a new Liverpool Gateway station with a specific location still to be determined. Okay, fine. Next section is really important. Phased delivery. This is what happens if you have a plan overall, right? A lesson from other projects, HS2, is that major schemes should be packaged into smaller and more manageable phases, helping to spread capital costs, unlock benefits on a rolling basis, and provide long-term certainty to supply chains, and also make it harder for Treasury to cancel it. This approach has been used successfully on major rail programs such as TRU, trans-Pennine route upgrade, Thameslink, and East-West Rail. Ish. This could be delivered similarly, is basically what they say. And I agree. I think they're spot on with that. It makes it harder for you it means you exploit benefits earlier. People see the benefits, and so they get behind the rest being delivered. It's a politically far more sensible way to deliver, which is partly why HS2 was not proposed and delivered this way. On to page 14. Very, very nice is a very, very nice bit of description about what this does. So this is a description of the benefits, this page 14. The new LMR delivers dedicated infrastructure for fast and reliable intercity journeys between our major cities, towns and airports, and supports improved connectivity onwards across the north and to elsewhere in the UK. Spot on. This is far from the only benefit, however. This is where I get excited. Oh, you know what? This is where I should have the drop deck, isn't it? Far from the only benefit, however. A crucial aspect of the scheme is that it releases enough capacity on existing routes to potentially triple or quadruple current train frequencies, benefiting a much wider mix of places and passengers. Yes! I am whooping. I am hollering. I am shouting into the microphone excitedly. Yes! That's it. That's the paragraph right there. Oof, that's very nice. I like that a lot. Sorry, it's me getting very excitable. Yeah, that's a delight to witness. I have to say, an absolute delight to witness. The scheme enables connections between Liverpool and Manchester shift from 2 lines, both currently struggling to cope with a mix of express, local and freight services, to a network of 3 complementary lines. So what's great about this is also that they are managing to... is also that they are considering the new proposed line not in isolation. They're considering it as part of the total network, which is the absolute right thing to do. I'm extremely pleased about this. So, what else? So, enables connections between Liverpool and Manchester. Express services would be concentrated on the new line, LMR as they're calling it, with the existing Chatmoss and Cheshire lines. Line commit, they've not spelled that right, providing increased freight and local passenger services. So, yes, the existing network can carry more freight and local passenger services. They've written it down for everyone to see. Look at this. Interesting. So I'm going to just pick up a point, actually, which is GJ Marshy. Actually, my take is the phasing bit is nonsense. I'm going to disagree, George, but okay. You can't build separate bits independently with their own benefits if it requires one part to make the other viable. Only if Treasury think it that way and fund it that way, but the point is that it shouldn't be structured that way. You structure the delivery that you can skip bits on and off the network and get those benefits, and you design the scheme to deliver those benefits incrementally. The funding is we're going to kind of jump to funding later, but I'm all right with that. Anyway, this is really good. There's a couple of really nice graphics. I'm going to pick up this graphic here shortly because it's really good. But that's a big. From me. I'm very pleased about that. That's good. This is good stuff. This is very good stuff. It's listing out wider benefits from the get-go. It's looking at the wider network in totality, and not even just rail, as we'll see later on as well, which is very nice. So here we go. This is discussing kind of existing work and sort of what's currently happening in terms of the overall picture. This is the key thing. We're already getting the local transport network ready to maximise the benefits of Liverpool-Manchester Railway, which will be integrated seamlessly with local and light rail and active travel routes. It's building the picture. GM is currently investing in streets using a streets for all approach to balance different demands. So again, it's building that picture of total mobility. And then saying Liverpool are doing the same thing, bus franchising, the new Merseyrail trains, although they're not that new anymore, but they are wonderful. New stations here and there. Look, this is good stuff. The proposal for a major upgrade for Liverpool Central Station and expanding active travel. They're talking about the big picture, the fact that all of this connects with all of that, and that's key. So we jump to 16. This bit's very interesting because what are they talking about? Long-term rail pipelines, which is very important. Not one that's exhaustive enough for my liking, but they are talking about the fact that there needs to be you need to think about these projects as a whole pipeline and not just rely on HS2 for everyone to suck the money from, but everything all in going on at once, major and minor. Well, major and minor in a network rail language is sub $1 billion, everything under £1 billion, but also the big stuff that is £1 billion or more, strategic stuff like this, regional stuff like this that's absolutely critical. So, description, building on the benefits unlocked by trans-Pennine route upgrade, fine, so that's all good stuff there. They've got their little map showing various schemes in stages of delivery. That this map is related to the next map that's kind of pertinent. So you've got we're delivering this, and this, and the next bit is we're then, how that works. What's key is they're talking about skills and supply chain capacity and how that will work, where the delivery will sit. I mean, it's a bit of a crude graphic, but it's essentially a Gantt chart pointing out when are we going to do this stuff? When are we going to do TRU? When are we going to then deliver East? How's that going to fit with HS2 Phase 1? How's that going to fit with East West Rail? That's all stuff currently being delivered. How's that then going to fit with the Staffordshire connector, which is the up to West Midlands to Crewe bit? the Liverpool-Manchester Railway, the Cheshire Connector, which is their sort of HS2 phase 2B, and a bit the north-south bit that connects up to their little junction. What was it, Millington? Then they're talking about the NPR east of Manchester stuff, so developing, delivering that into Leeds. Frustratingly, they're talking about this as that's the total picture, when of course, as everyone watching this knows, the eastern leg of HS2 from through the West Midlands and up to Leeds and beyond is also critical. Because without that, you're not relieving the Midland Main Line, the East Coast Main Line. The East Coast Main Line in particular being absolutely saturated, and we're expecting up to a 10% reduction in reliability in the near term as a result of the new timetable at the end of the year. So, not the full picture, but I'm very pleased to see this sort of view of the interaction between these things. It's really important. And so yeah, we've got this kind of fun bit here, which is comparing. This is what I call the embarrass the Treasury page, because it's showing we're showing this, but you've already funded, by the way, East West Rail and Crossrail down south. So sort your absolute out, essentially. So that's good. There's some nice pictures. Where is the growth? So we kind of bounce through this bit fairly quickly, but this whole section is really about localizing the benefits of the railway line. There's Crewe, there's Chester, there's Manchester Piccadilly, the airport, Bank Quay, the Gateway and Lime Street, and sort of the relationship between all of them. So there's the network. What's good is they're localizing the benefits. They're showing connections, the useful connections to bits of the local rail network, which is really good. And kind of showing where the stations will sit and how they relate. This is fine. We can go through this fairly quickly because it's just sort of localizing the benefits of each of the major stations, talking about how they're tied into the local urban fabric. Here's the page saying, we haven't decided exactly where a station might sit, but here are all the things that are useful and what we might want to be relating the station to in terms of its surrounding area. Again, localizing the benefits. They're talking about kind of what that looks like in terms of local benefits, which is really important. I wish I'd stopped hitting my right mouse button. So that's all good and fine, and also picking out Chester and Crewe, which I'm pleased about. I'm pleased they've done that. We then jump to number 4, and we can kind of whiz through this pretty quickly as well, but a lot of this is actually then going, this is talking about airports, but also crucially talking about freight. So elements of this I'm more cynical about, particularly the aviation element, because I don't want us to be growing how much is happening through airports. In fact, quite the opposite. I want us to be reducing how much flow there is from our airports to the rest of the world, particularly areas close to, within reach of a better railway network, which is why HS2 was so important, or one of many reasons it was so important. So okay, fine. That's the sort of the stuff here. But one of the key things that I like is that freight is starting to get talked about a lot here, and the value for key freight, the unlocking capacity for faster, greener rail freight flows and substantially reducing delays caused by the waiting for pass, which would transform the economics of carrying short distance, high volume trade flows by rail, creating an ability to more than double rail freight volumes from the port of Liverpool. So this is kind of key useful factors. One of the things this page really picks up on that. Strengthening resilience of global supply chains. It's really pointing out what the benefits for freight are by this work. Again, critical that you're talking about the unlocked capacity benefits. So this is generally a good view of that freight picture, which I think is really important. Right, I want to go through this. This section 5, but particularly this table, I want to go through this in some detail because this is talking about a different delivery model. So we're going through the lessons here and then talk about their response. So lesson 1 they've talked about here is inadequate upfront planning has resulted in program inefficiencies and cost overruns, including through major changes to project objectives and/or scope after contracts have been awarded and work started. That's the government meddling bit. The response to that from LMR is collaborative scheme development between central government and local leaders to confirm transport and growth objectives and resolve issues early. Absolutely agree. Programme allowance for longer development period with efficiencies gained in consenting and construction through adoption of reforms in the planning and infrastructure bill, is that right? And new technologies, methodologies, yada yada, whatever. Commitment to maintaining consistency of objectives and scope once construction begins. So basically telling central government to off once the designs have been finalized. That's fair enough. Overly top-down, this is the next lesson. Overly top-down planning and delivery structures have resulted in schemes that miss out on important local benefits. Again, spot on. Adoption of a more bottom-up approach underpinning the need to maximize economic benefits. Implementation of the LMR board to provide a governance vehicle for collaboration today, which could evolve into sponsorship or delivery function in the future. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Two problems with this. Number one, you don't want to lose the strategic oversight of how will this fit into the national high-speed rail network. Number two, we're losing a lot of lessons from HS2 Limited in doing that. And it seems inevitable at this point because politicians have decided to just murder HS2 Limited as an organisation. But LMR growing this way, potentially there's a big gap in all of the knowledge of delivering a scheme, which HS2 Limited had got to being quite good at by this point, after the pain of phase one delivery. Well, we're going to lose all that knowledge. So I'm yes, agreed to an extent, but there's some risks there on the response from LMR. Lesson number 3, lack of coordination and integration between delivery of rail infrastructure and development planning. Enabling infrastructure has impacted the realization of growth-related benefits. That's a fancy way of saying not thinking about the whole railway network as a whole. Integrating development and growth planning and delivery mechanisms from the start alongside planning for the railway. Yes, establishing station growth opportunity areas. Okay, fine. So that's better. Lesson number 4, appropriately structured and incentivized private sector investment could deliver complex projects on time and on budget and minimize burden on the exchequer, but there could be trade-offs for other public priorities, and value for money needs to be carefully analyzed. This is my I've kind of got, as I read this is the sound playing in my ear. Anyway, you get the picture. So yeah, I'm slightly worried about the PFI bit. Like, it'd be nice if planning and infrastructure bill, thank you, Gareth. It'd be nice if this worked magically, but it hadn't up to this point for major schemes. It didn't work with East West Rail. It certainly didn't work with HS2. It hasn't worked for Crossrail, other than, Canary Wharf Group building their station. There are... The response here is, from LMR, is openness to further discussions with government on the suitability of such an approach for UK rail infrastructure generally, and for the characteristics of a project like LMR more specifically. So there's some wariness, and I draw people back to Jürgen Meyer's point about PFI, in that, I mean, obviously I hate PFI. We should just publicly fund this stuff. It's stupid to make the bad call about just fund the stuff. It's much cheaper to just fund it and just forget our stupid fiscal rules because they're made up junk. But even if I put a lib hat on, even libs are kind of mixed belief in trying to get the private sector involved. It's better to, the point of this is that you build the infrastructure to unlock value for the private sector by having better functioning areas, regions, cities. Okay, packaging large schemes into smaller phases, each with standalone benefits, can be an effective way to affordably deliver. So the packaging, the phases, and then that's what lesson 5, and yes, they have then said, we're proposing a 3-phase approach to delivering LMR, so fine. The next bit, I very briefly, we're going to jump through much of the rest of this now, but the thing that I want to kind of the last little points I want to pick up is, page 43 here is they say the previous government committed 17 billion to the LMR, or whatever it was called, before following the cancellation of HS2 Phase 2. Okay. Although the HS2 decision has significant impacts on the quality of life and growth potential for our city regions, and we believe that north-south connectivity remains a critical regional and national concern that must not be overlooked. Good to see them write that. We welcome the commitment to east-west connectivity as part of the NPR vision. We're asking the current government to extend this commitment, and then this is where they say that we recognise the nation's fiscal environment is constrained by, we've decided for it to be, but anyway. So, fine. And then they go into the stuff. And I'm going to jump through this funding stuff because it's all kind of waffle until Treasury actually do something. So I'm gonna, if you don't mind, I'm gonna bump through this bit at pace. But for the most part, it's talking about sharing, value sharing to pay for the project, which is a quite reasonable way to fund infrastructure. Leveraging just overall private sector investment. I'm much more skeptical about this. Number 3, integrating development and growth with the railway. I think unlocking station growth areas and then bringing that growth back into funding the stations and approaching infrastructure is doable, but it would require Treasury to allow railways to be, and I have some archive information about this, which will be fun, from 1979. It would require Treasury to let the railways be developers, and they ought to do that, in fact. And then number 4 is de-risking delivery, lowering costs, and accelerating the program by some of the administrative stuff. So, you know what, fine. Number 6, what's nice here is a discussion about skills, which is really important, and the pathways. So I'm glad they're touching on that. They've got this little thing about careers and life in the North, which is kind of cute, but, fine. And then what I really like here, from page 56 here, is they're telling the story. They are localizing these benefits, which is really important. I'm really glad that this little bit here, these nice little sort of little sort of cutouts here are a quite nice way to kind of localize those benefits. And when we get the kind of the LMR board members here, there we go. Interesting. And the actual partnership, the LMR. So that's the board, and then there's the LMR partnership board separately, which Hugh Merriman is the chair of, and a bunch of other people here that fine. So that's good. Broadly, I would say that's good stuff. And that's the report. That is the report. What do I think of this? A few things, actually. Well, firstly, let's go big face. I'm happy with this. I think it's good. I'm happy. And I think, we'll get to my scoring of this, but I think overall, there's lots of kind of chat going through here. Overall, I feel positive about this. The challenge will be how you get government on board with it. Let's just review a few things that I do really like. So let's do that. So first of all, let me just put my face in the. God, I'm finding my little small face. Here I am up in the top. In fact, let's medium face me. Here I am. I'm in the bottom corner. So key things that I think are important. So, number 1 is that they are doing this. They're painting the full picture from day one, and this graphic I like. They're going from. What we have, and I created graphics not dissimilar to this for, if you remember, Permanent Rail Engineering, RIP, created graphics similar to this, related to passenger numbers rather than trains per hour, because I think the number of seats is more. Anyway, but trains per hour here, they've gone from what we have today to what they could have, and I think this is brilliant. This really shows what you unlock by building the new line, and it shows the benefits are you double capacity, or if not more, on the existing railway network. I think that's really powerful. It's a really nice way to describe it, to detail it. And also they say with potential to accommodate additional services here, which I'd say the national services. This the kind of the pan UK services. This I like a lot. This is good. They've very much painted the full picture from day one, and they've done it with some they've described it quite nicely. Number 2, they have localized the benefits, which is a key thing that HS2 failed to do from the outset. It did stuff like rebalancing the economy, and they maybe had briefcase guys getting around the country quicker. They made barely that. They never made any effort to really paint those local pictures. And they've it's not just these nice cute graphics they had at the end. They've kind of done this throughout. Perhaps not to the same level as I would in detail, but they're kind of not quite at the level of the full detail that they can kind of bring in anyway. So I like this. What's the next one? They did the thing where they plotted skills and timelines and thought about the relationship with the supply chain, which I think is really important. I should have added the map graphic to this so this all fits together, but as you know, I think this is incomplete and not ambitious enough. But that's not for this board to think about necessarily. They've painted the picture of what they see as related to their stuff, as well as what's currently being delivered. And you know what? That's fine and fair enough. I think there's a lot more major infrastructure that needs to be delivered in this bit here, But broadly, yeah. And then it gives an idea of where this ought to sit in terms of what needs to happen when, which I do like. And then the most important one, because this is critical in actually getting this stuff delivered, is they've gone some length to embarrassing the Treasury, which I'm very pleased about, because the only way you're going to actually successfully deliver this stuff is by doing just that. It is by embarrassing Treasury into showing, oh, you're doing this, you're willing to do all this. What's that? 25 billion East West Rail. I don't even know what the headline budget is for East West Rail anymore. Some number of billions. But our little bit of railway down here, you're still umming and ahhing about. Is that the case? Huh. Interesting. Yeah. So I like this. I like this. The logic of embarrass Treasury into very much embarrass Treasury into delivering something that delivering the final full picture. So I like this. This is good. Embarrass Treasury. That's very, very important. It's a nice little graphic to do that. Actually, I do like this. The last point I want to say is kind of, can this work though? This is where we hand over to our man Andy Burnham. The reason I picked out Burnham in particular is because, unlike Steve Rotherham, I don't have any problems with Steve, but unlike Steve Rotherham, Burnham has made a point of being extremely loud on the public stage, nationally, and he's been very successful in doing so. He's seen as a bit of a northern figurehead. Some people find that annoying. But they shouldn't, frankly, because it's very valuable that we have someone, a king in the north, as it were, and that is Burnham. Burnham has picked up and run with that role. Love him or hate him, that is where he's at, and he has the ability, politically, to apply a lot of pressure on Starmer and Reeves, because Starmer and Reeves are desperate to not be as hated as they currently are. They're polling pathetically right now, and on the back of the local elections, that it's just going to get worse and worse. They're polling worse than any modern government ever has at this stage in their tenure. It's shocking. So they're desperate to work out what they need to do, and they have no idea, because there aren't people who have ideas or any vision about the future, whereas Burnham does. This is a difference between Burnham and Reeves and Starmer, is that he has some ideas, and he has an idea about how transport can make direct benefits to people. He's already working on that for GM, and he is a figurehead that can lead the whole of the North in that direction, certainly the Northwest. So I think Burnham has the potential political power to achieve this. I think we can do this. The next question, of course, is the Connecting the Northwest report. We have to give this a Rail Natter rating. So what do we think, people? What do we think for the Connecting the Northwest report? Well, I think that it's got 4 Pandrel clips. I've denied it the full 5 because I think that it could go further in localising the benefits. I think it could pick out some local places in a bit more detail off the route, so that they show what the benefits are for people who are within what you might call the Northwest, but not. So, for example, they could have jumped up to places outside on the very edge of their remit within the boundary of the partnership, and said, well, this is how they will benefit. There's not quite enough of that. They could have done some isochrones about travel to work. There's a little more they could have done from a desktop, fairly quick perspective. But it's not perfect. It's not enough to be perfect, but I still think it's one of the strongest reports we've looked at, and it does get me a little bit energized about, might this be enough to tip government, if not Treasury, into doing something useful? I think it could. I really think it could. I don't hold much hope for Treasury doing anything marvellous. Yeah, I would love to have someone come on and talk about what change the Teal Book might mean for the realisticness of this happening. And maybe we'll find out a bit more of that when the announcements come out, I think, on the 11th of June. The actual strategic spending review announcement. So we'll see then. But it's exciting. I do think that, we can be excited about this report and what it potentially could deliver, because I think it has a legitimate role to play in the messy politics that we're living in currently. So let's see. So 4 stars for the Connecting the Northwest report. Nice work. Andy Burnham, come and join us. Come on Rail Natter and tell us about this. It'd be fun for you to do that. Now, I must give you a bit of a mid-reel ad. Don't disappear yet, because there is the bumper section, the bumper segment to come in a matter of minutes. I want to talk to you about Patreon specifically, and what Patreon is. A little bit of change coming for the Patreon folk. There'll be a consolidation of those for the new people, for the people who are existing Patreon people, Patreon folks. You will, for the most part, if you're on less than £5, you'll fall into broadly the £2 tier. If you're £5 and above, you'll get the thing. I'm not going to kick you out of your current tier if it's not. If you're £1, £3, or £4 tiers, I'm not going to kick you off those. But feel free to, if you're in those, you might want to jump up to the £5 tier to get the stuff that you will get as a £5 and above patron supporter. And those are not just the exclusive Discord channel access, not just merch discount, not just appearing in the end credits, and not just the warm fuzzy feeling of being a supporter, but you will also get a weekly bonus RailNatter short. The first one of those, I think, should be next week, in fact. You'll get Q&A sessions. You'll get some potentially little masterclassy type things on campaigning and on bits and bobs. You'll get first dibs on event tickets. You will get a free How the Railways Will Fix the Future audiobook, and you'll get some behind-the-scenes previews and a bit more. I'm still taking suggestions on some of the fun stuff you will get to do and get to be involved in for the £5 and above tier. I know there's a bit of a change in the model. I know I've eroded what I said originally, which is everyone gets everything. Pay what you can, etc. But frankly, it's to allow. I was reaching a point with RailNatter where I need additional support to keep it vibrant, keep it moving, keep it engaging people, and therefore widening the reach of some of the campaigny stuff that we do. So there's an opportunity for RailNatter to get even more impactful, because RailNatter is an extremely impactful little podcast for what it does. You should all be very proud of yourselves, Patreon supporters, because you allow that to happen. But we can do even more, and that's kind of why we've had this change of structure. And so, comments on this. Send me messages on Patreon if you've got thoughts on this. If you're really angry and upset about it, we can have a chat. But for the most part, this should be an exciting way to push us into having more people supporting behind the scenes, and therefore more RailNatter for everyone in question. People behind the curtain. Now, what do I want to say here? What I want to say... No, this is me getting used to things. James, you can cut all of this out. Good grief. This is me. Hello, everyone. Reminding myself of what bit I need to click. There we go. Oh, my goodness. Yes. Here we go. Right. We got there in the end. Now, the bumper segment. I'm almost in retake it mode. Now, this is live. I need to remember this is... Hello, everyone. This is live. This is the bumper segment, and I'm gonna. The reason I'm doing this bit is because it can get chopped out into a short, nice, easy bit for people to come in and read about later. So I'm going to do that very clearly now. Now, one of the things we've seen announced very recently is the first, very massive rabbit ears, the first bit of railway being nationalised, and you can see the Secretary of State for Transport here, Heidi Alexander, walking around and looking at the giant sticker they attached to a South Western Railways train. Now, I have some things to say about this. Firstly, I'm not too upset about the, let me be very clear, interim branding they're using. I don't mind that. That's fine. What I do want to point out, however, is that this is not the first thing to be nationalised into Great British Railways, because technically there are multiple rail operators currently underneath DFTO, the renamed holding company that includes Trans-Pennine Express, Northern Rail, and LNER. Those are already part of DFTO, and SWR is now part of DFTO, which then raises another question, which Heidi Alexander has said people will have to work hard to get to use the GBR branding, which then puzzles me. Is like, that's not how this is supposed to work. We shouldn't have train operators. The point isn't that we have train operators, it's that we have an integrated system. So that I'm a little bit wary of that. This is also even the SWR moment. It's like, well, all the train operators are currently classified by the ONS as publicly as publicly owned because of the level of, because the ONS was like, there is too much control over the contracts for this, so these can no longer be classified as fully private anyway. So it's not really that big a deal. It's the official, a railway company classified as public according to the ONS is now being classified as public according to Companies House. Big deal. Not a big deal. That doesn't mean to say this is not an important moment for a lot of people who are currently working hard behind the scenes to genuinely give us the right shape of railway industry and railway organisation in the form of GBR. So this moment does have significance for those people. The last thing I want to say, though, is on the branding. A lot of people have got a mixture of upset or otherwise about the branding. Firstly, reiterate, this is interim branding, so let's not get too worried about the branding. Secondly, this is kind of fine. I don't mind. I don't mind. It's relatively simple. The double arrow is unmolested. It's using a bold version of Rail Alphabet, what I believe might actually be Rail Alphabet 2.1 or Rail Alphabet 3, depending on what they end up calling it. Spoiler alert. I don't mind this, actually. I think that the dark blue is kind of, it's the Britain blue, which actually it's Scottish blue, isn't it? So okay, we had a blue already. It was called British Rail Blue, but fine. British Rail Blue was kind of selected for reasons other than just its aesthetics. It was also selected for how it would fade in the sun and things of this nature. So I'm fine with this. So the way I want to conclude on this is, it's not a bad thing that this is happening, but it's very tiny baby steps, and some of the language around it I'm worried about, particularly the idea of train operators continuing to exist as an autonomous entity. That does worry me. So watch this space. Great British Railways is coming, but will it be the right thing for the railways? And does it constitute what we need? Well, it certainly doesn't at the moment. We are a long way from Treasury agreeing to that. Let's see. Anyway, I'm now getting used to this. Firstly, the fun thing is, I'm realizing I'm wearing a green t-shirt, which, let's see how the t-shirt color changes. As you've got a peek behind the curtain as to my new chroma keyed slide deck. Let's see how this changes when I go big face. Oh, not a huge amount, to be fair. So, okay, so I've kind of seemed to have set the chroma up all right, so that's good. Let's go big face again, just so that I can catch all of your chats before we round out the episode. So, lots of people are asking when the sequel to episode 222 is coming. More stuff on Crane staying on the national level. We should do a bit more of that. Let's see. The new line shouldn't exceed 125 to increase lines capacity. No, I disagree. This is a high-speed network, segregated high-speed lines, so they should be designed to, ideally, as fast as they can go, but certainly in excess of 300 kilometers an hour they should be designed for, I would hope, in the main. Finally, the delivery of a t-shirt. Yeah, there have been some issues with Spring. Sorry about anyone who's been waiting for merchandise. By the way, the most popular merchandise, a little further peek behind the curtain, which is kind of fun, is... No, you have to be a Patreon support to find that out. Right, what else have we got here? Jamie Potts, would somebody please change the name? Yeah, Great British Railways, the Great and the Ways are both severely redundant, as all of us know, but there we go. I've interpreted most of what Alexander has said as pre-GBR legislation stuff that will be forgotten once we have a proper organisation that isn't DFT. That's the optimistic way to look at it, Knacker. You're right. And that's fair enough. Gareth, who is a nerd on currency and various other things, is saying Scottish blue is lighter than the blue appearing on the butcher's apron. Noted. Thank you, Gareth. Very, very good. Also, people are laughing at the fact that I'm wearing an Atkins t-shirt. Yeah, this is my grad scheme sporty t-shirt that I got when I finished the grad scheme, and did what all good engineers do, which is promptly leave the organisation you did the grad scheme with because they don't offer you enough actual responsibility and they don't pay you enough. So terrific. Anyway, that's not very interesting. What I do want to do is remove my face and give you a little bit of the content teasers, including not just next week's episode, but the fact that as of this evening, a podcast that I was a guest on that I'm extremely pleased about, with enormous explosions and things of this nature, is the FAB Thunderbirds podcast with Harry and Tom Brennan. This was a delight. For any of you who are not listening to this already, and I know a few, Katie, I know you're there are other people who I know are listeners to this. There are a few good natter friend. Everyone watching this should be a fan of this podcast because it's terrific fun. And we're reaching the end of Thunderbirds on it. It will pivot into the rest of the Jerry Anderson era, I'm sure. But I did Atlantic Inferno, and it was good fun, and there was quite a lot of Jerry Al-Gaib, for those who know what that means. It was terrific fun. So go find that, listen to it, support them in any way you can, but certainly let's give them a big old boost of listener numbers if indeed Rail Natter has a bigger audience than they do. So let's see that happen, because it was fun, and I had a lot of fun, and it's 2.5 hours of listening, so you can enjoy that. Lastly, next week's episode is going to be on Australia. It might be the first in a two-parter. It might be self-contained into a single piece. Who knows? But I'm very excited that next week shall be Australia. And that's it, really. From me, from you, it's been a delight to have you along, and I shall bid you all an enthusiastic farewell. Take great care of yourself, and I will see you later on. Cheerio! Cheerio!